Welcome everyone. My name is Sarah. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a project coordinator with the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault. And welcome to our web conference this morning, Community Collaboration for Comprehensive Campus Sexual Violence Prevention. We're glad to see so many of you joining. We're excited to have so many awesome presenters and a great panel today. So we're just really glad to be here. We are your hosts this morning. We are with the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault, AKA CalCASA. We are California's statewide coalition for sexual assault. CalCASA is committed to ending sexual violence through a multifaceted approach of both prevention and intervention and education and research and advocacy and public policy. We also provide leadership and vision and resources to rape crisis centers, individuals and other entities such as colleges and universities who are also committed to ending sexual violence, which is a big part of our mission and why CalCASA leads with prevention.
Yeah, and I noticed the disclaimer is actually this one is through our California Rape Prevention Education Program with funding from the California Department of Public Health, who is receiving their money from the Rape Prevention Education Fund and the Rape Set Aside from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The views represented in this web conference are not the official views of the California Department of Public Health. So just to get that disclaimer.
Thanks for that, David. I know that we are all probably Zoom whizzes at this point, but we do like to do just a quick overview. We'll be engaging folks today on using the text chat feature. Like I mentioned, we'll be sending out the slides following the conclusion of the web conference. We'll be sending out the recording as well and posting that to our landing page. If you are having internet connectivity issues, you can always call in. That phone number should have been included in your registration confirmation. We noticed that sometimes when folks call in, it should be muting folks automatically, but it does not always do that. So I will be going through, if we're getting any background noise or anything like that, I'll be going through and muting folks. It's not because we don't like you, it's because when we have 100, 150 people, 200 people on a web conference with background noise, it can be very distracting. Additionally, we have closed captioning provided for you today by our friends over at Aberdeen Captioning. If you would like to access closed captioning, you can go ahead and click the little closed caption button at the bottom of your screen on the information bar there, and it should be start streaming for you. And for our web conference guidelines, we will have time for a Q&A later, but we do encourage you to put your questions in the chat as we go along here. We'll be making sure that we are kind of collecting those. We know that sometimes when we're going through a web conference, you might have a question pop into your head in the moment and maybe we'll lose it. So we won't be answering questions throughout, but we do still encourage you to put that in there so we can make sure that we're capturing that and bringing that up later during the Q&A. So please, please feel free to do so. And also, you know, we know that we're on Zoom all day, every day, so many of us. So please do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself in this space today. So again, these are the folks that we have on this web conference. I will not go through everyone's introduction because they will be introducing themselves as they speak. But again, my name is Sarah. She, her. I'm with CalCASA. I will be your tech guru today. So if you are experiencing any technical difficulties or anything like that, you can go ahead and send me a private message and we will try and get that sorted out for you. I believe that my colleague Claudia is also on this web conference and will be kind of my backup for tech support. So you can go ahead and reach out to her too. And then we're also joined today by my CalCASA colleague, David Lee, who I'm going to hand it over to in just one moment. We have Dr. Jennifer Wagman, who will be talking about the UC Speaks Up report. We have Paula Arrowsmith-Jones from North Coast Rape Crisis Team and her colleague from Humboldt State University. We have Angelina Alvarez from Valley Oasis and Antelope Valley and her college counterpart, Jill Zimmerman, and we also have Yesenia from UC Merced and Lena from Valley Crisis, Rape Crisis Center. So we have a really full agenda for you today and a really great panel. So we're excited to get into it. We have some learning objectives today. Really what we're hoping to accomplish is by the end of it, so you'll have kind of a good idea of some of the research that took place, some of those fundamental findings from the UC Speaks Up report. We'll make sure to get you that report as well. We'll be dropping a link in the chat. And we really are hoping that folks today are walking away with some concrete steps and tools and ideas for collaboration between California colleges and community rape crisis centers, particularly to advance sexual violence prevention and implement those prevention programs on college campuses. And we hope that you'll enjoy our panel and be able to name some of those specific strategies that are currently being implemented in California from what we see as really great and very essential partnerships between some of our rape crisis centers and California campuses. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to my colleague at CalCASA, David Lee.
Hi, everyone, and pleasure to be able to see so many people joining us. We're at 129 people already, so that's great to see so many people throughout California. It looks like someone from Missouri has also joined us, so welcome. And so I'm going to give a little brief context about what we're doing today and looking at partnerships. And that we feel that an important part of doing the work to prevent sexual violence on college campuses involves the partnerships. And there's many other pieces, but we're going to highlight that today. Next slide, please. As we all know, sexual assault is a serious problem on college campuses. And I'm just, there's a recent study that was done by the American Association of American Universities that this similar data that we've seen anywhere else. And in their assessments, they found that almost 26% of undergraduate women experienced non-consensual sexual contact in the survey in 2019. And this was done in 22 colleges throughout the United States. And of those campuses that had done this in 2015 and 2019, there was even a slight increase of those cases of reports of people reporting that they've experienced it in the 21 schools that took both. So we know this is a serious problem. Everyone here is has been familiar with that conversation, and that's why you're joining us today. Next slide. And that the national conversation has been profound. There have been books and movies written about the issue of sexual assault on college campuses. I've just put a few of them, whether it's Missoula by Jon Krakauer, The Hunting Ground, the film, and then recently the book Know My Name by Chanel Miller, who was the survivor who had been assaulted at prominent case in Stanford. There's many great student-led organizations that have been taking action to support activism to address the issue of sexual assault on campus, whether it's End Rape on Campus, It's on Us, or Know Your Nine is just examples. And then I just took literally grabbed some headlines out of the newspapers from recently, whether it was last August when the new Title IX rules went into effect. Then there's a Washington Post. I think we'll throw the link to the Claudia will throw the link to the Washington Post article in there, or just this last week talking about the new Biden administration's interest to be able to address, as we know, when Vice President Biden was very active in being able to address issues of campus sexual assault. So it's a topic that remains very much alive and so we just had some of those articles, and so we recognize that context. Next slide, please. Now, in CalCASA many years ago put together a report about sexual violence prevention and talked about 3 prongs of it and of being able to do prevention work. And part of it is that you need the trauma-informed services, that you need to have a comprehensive prevention effort, and you need to have collaboration and engagement. And those are all based within the context of having institutional commitment and effective policies to move forward. What we're going to be doing today, Claudia did post a link to the report, and I'll talk about this in a moment, is that we're going to talk about the collaboration piece, because this is an important element. Collaboration and partnership is such an important piece to being able to effectively address the issue of sexual assault on college campuses. And there is worth having There are many resources about how to do trauma-informed services and how to be able to do the comprehensive prevention. But without the collaboration and that engagement, we're not going to be able to be effective in moving forward. Next slide, please. We at CalCASA and in our work, this is done some of our work with the California Department of Public Health and also nationally with the Centers for Disease Control Prevention. We talk about public health approaches to prevent sexual violence on college campuses. And I would recommend this report that was put together by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I had the opportunity to participate in its development. Thank you, Claudia, for posting the link. And in there, they talk about 5 pillars. And in those pillars, it includes partnerships and sustainability as an important piece to be able to really build prevention efforts. And so in these models, and we really believe that's important. So this is something that we're drawing upon. Next slide, please. CalCASA has put out many other resources to be able to look at college campus, and I know we'll be putting these out there. In 2014, we put together a student summit to get student recommendations about how to address sexual violence prevention. We also had done a scan of sexual assault prevention efforts on United States college campuses that talks about that work. And just this year, we released a new report called Enhancing Campus Sexual Assault Prevention Efforts Through Situational Interventions, which are ways to be able to change the environment on college campuses to prevent sexual violence. These are just some of the resources that we have available, and encourage you to be able to help visit us. Also, the scan was done by our Prevent Connect project, and we have a host of web conferences on how to do prevention work on college campuses through our Prevent Connect. So I encourage you to visit those. And Claudia, I didn't put Prevent Connect in the in your slides, but if you can just write the Prevent Connect URL, that would be great. Okay, next slide, please. And I want to talk about funding, recognizing opportunities for funding. And so I'm going to highlight 2 of them. And both of these require collaboration between community organizations and college campuses in order to be getting these funding for sexual violence. So one of them is for the Department of Justice, the Office of Violence Against Women. They just released in the last few weeks their most recent grants to reduce domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking on campus program proposals. And so those are due on March 16th. And one of the requirements is a collaboration, which we'll be talking about. And so we do have the link there for you if you're doing it. This has been released every year. So if your campus is not able to do that this year, you might want to spend time preparing, because it is likely that they will be releasing it again next year. And sometimes it takes a longer, especially for a campus, to be able to get a proposal together than the short time frame they give you to respond. Similarly, in California, the California Office of Emergency Services for the last 2 years has had a campus sexual assault program grant. They tend to be released in the late summer or early fall. The last 2 grants were due in the fall. There is not one open at this time. If they do continue to do this grant, which that would be coming later. We did give you the link of where to be able to search for or get notice of the awards that come from Cal OES. And this also requires a collaboration between a local rape crisis center and the campus to be able to move forward. CalCASA provides technical assistance to the organizations that are funded. I see that several of you who have this funding are from Cal OES and also from OVW are attending today's web conference. So with this context of recognizing that sexual violence there's so much work, we're going to focus on the partnership, and we're going to think about how it's going to strengthen our prevention work. Because we know that in order to be able to address sexual violence and end sexual violence, it's going to take more than the providing services and responding to cases. It's about what we can do to be able to prevent it from happening, and particularly in the first place. But they're tied together, and how we provide support to people as we respond to it and how we prevent it. And there's opportunities. And so what we're today doing is highlighting 3 different collaborations. one from a UC, one from a community college, and one from a Cal State program that are going to talk about different types of collaboration between a local rape crisis center and the campus in order for them to strengthen their prevention efforts. And so we're really proud to have these opportunities to be able to share what they're doing. So with that, I think I'm going to hand, we're going to start with introducing Jennifer Wagman, who is a assistant professor at the Department of Community Health Sciences at the UCLA Fielding School of Public Health. And she's been doing public health research on violence prevention and health promotion for the past 20 years and has worked in the United States, also in sub-Saharan Africa. And it's great to be able to have, and Jennifer is going to talk about a study that they've done where they talked with over 200 people looking at different college campuses. And while it was done on UC campuses, I think that gives us lessons for us to look at for all campuses. So Jennifer, great to have you joining us today.
Thank you, David, and thank you, David and Sarah, for the introduction and the invitation to be here. It's really a privilege to join all of you. And as David said, I'm going to be talking about a research project that has been conducted on some of the University of California campuses. So as many of you know a lot more than I do, we have a whole lot of different systems in place across the state of California with regard to the way in which community collaboration is done at individual campuses, whether they're public or private, and across the different systems. So it's great to be here today to tell you a little bit about the work that we have done on some of the University of California campuses. So the UC Speaks Up initiative is the project that I'm going to be talking about today. This is a public health research initiative to try to understand both the causes and consequences of violence. And the real goal is, as David said, to come from a public health perspective in that our priority is on preventing violence before it takes place. So our mission has been to generate knowledge that we can use to then develop and refine interventions and policies that can improve health and well-being across the whole University of California system. Our focus has been on the 10 core UC campuses across the state, and I'm going to be talking about qualitative research that we've done over the past 3 years on 3 of the campuses. So our 3 southernmost campuses, UC Los Angeles, UC San Diego, and UC Santa Barbara. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the UC Speaks Up structure is something that has been really important for all of us. This project is primarily research-based, as I mentioned, and the goal is to generate research findings that we can use to inform programs. One of the really key parts of this project has been that we wanted it to be very much student-led from start to finish. We fully believe that in order to address these issues on our college and university campuses, it's essential for us to involve the folks who are most directly impacted. It is important to note that our services and research certainly recognizes the involvement and the health of staff and faculty members, as well as others in the community, but our key focus has been on students, both undergraduate, graduate, professional. Our values are shown here, survivor-centered. We've really promoted healing-centered engagement or trauma-informed approaches. One of the big issues too is that we've wanted to have a longitudinal approach so that it's something that is really iterative and ongoing, not just kind of cross-sectional one-off approaches. I want to highlight that Claire Amabile is with us today. She is our student research lead. She and I actually started working together in 2017 when she was an undergraduate student at UC Santa Barbara. She and I were both based at UC San Diego, and for a couple of years, and we are now at UCLA, where we moved in 2019, and Claire is now an MPH student at the Fielding School of Public Health. And I didn't note that I am actually an assistant professor at the Fielding School as well in the Department of Community Health Science. Next slide, please. Preempt this. So I wanted to, I think there might be a slide missing. Is there an ecological model in there? Yeah, okay. So our study aim that I'm going to be presenting to you is really to give an overview of what our research project has been overall. Again, we are coming from a public health perspective, which really approaches the violence prevention as well as other health problems using a social ecological approach. And what this means is that we really believe that violence is something that results from factors at multiple different levels. So this is actually borrowing from the CDC's social ecological model. Our goal has been to understand the factors that contribute to violence at different levels. We've looked at 5 levels specifically, including the individual level, the relationship level, the institutional level, and that's referring to our specific UC campuses, the community level, which refers to the community in which each of these campuses is situated, and then the social level, which includes a lot of our public policy issues. By understanding the factors that contribute to violence at each of these levels, we're able to address those factors and respond to them specifically so that we can tailor both our response services and programs, but also develop prevention programs that directly address the specific needs of each of our campuses. So sorry, I think these might be out of order, but Sarah, if you could go to the next slide, the one that you were just at, with the, I think we're missing a few slides here, but this one, the UC system-wide model. I want to address again that the UC system is made up of 10 campuses. In 2014, when the White House Task Force on Addressing Sexual Assault on Campuses was established by the Biden and Obama administration, our then president, Janet Napolitano, established a UC-wide task force on sexual violence and sexual harassment. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I just wanted to illustrate that one very unique aspect of the UC system is that we have a very strong comprehensive model for addressing and responding to sexual violence and sexual harassment. There are 7 core tenets that have been established system-wide, which I have put on this slide here to give you a sense of the immense amount of work that has gone into ensuring that each of our campuses has a breadth of prevention education services as well as response services that are available to provide comprehensive programming across our systems. So one of the things that we have been doing with the UC Speaks Up project is trying to bolster the efforts that are available on campus. We're going to hear from Yesenia and Lena later from UC Merced, who are going to actually provide more expert information on what actually happens on some of our UC campuses. If you can go to the next slide. What we had attempted to do in our research is actually focus on one of the areas that hasn't been really strengthened across the UC system, and that is community collaboration. So I showed you that ecological model, and we have a whole lot of programs established at each of the different inner levels, so interpersonal, individual, relationship, institutional, but one of the areas that we see an opportunity for more strengthening has been to focus on ways in which we can support the existing programming by working to develop stronger programs and collaborations with some of the folks in the communities surrounding our campuses. So as David mentioned, we've done hundreds of interviews with students, staff, and faculty, as well as community stakeholders on the 3 campuses of UCLA, UC San Diego, and UC Santa Barbara. In my last few minutes, I'm going to present some findings from in-depth interviews our team did with 34 UC staff members from the 3 campuses who are working closely with students, most of which are actually providing direct services to students related to sexual violence and sexual harassment. So these include folks from our Title IX offices, our counseling and psychological services, our care offices, and from some of the administrative leadership positions developed, such as the folks working with our athletes to provide services related to sexual violence and sexual harassment, and to liaise with our care service officers. We also conducted 11 interviews with community stakeholders from these 3 areas. Next slide, please. I'm going to go through some of the main findings that came up from these in-depth interviews. So we found that community campus collaborations do in fact exist between service agencies in each of these respective areas and our campuses, UCLA, San Diego, Santa Barbara. But they differed by settings, and overall it was the opinions from both our community stakeholders as well as the individuals on our campus that these collaborations were there but kind of inconsistent. Some campuses had really strong relationships where they were offering referral and communication. Some of them had shared funding. Others really didn't communicate as well. And I provided 2 quotes here to give you a sense of what we learned from some of our community stakeholders, that they were essentially saying that we do know each other and sometimes we communicate, but we really have opportunity for strengthening these relationships so that we can help each other out. Next slide, please. Another big finding across each of our campuses is that our UC staff members, and this was particularly the case with the individuals providing services related to sexual violence and sexual health, is that they often felt that the demand for their services was much higher than the resources that they had available. And this included both human resources, so staffing, as well as their ability to provide services that were often needed by students, staff, and faculty. So specifically, one of the staff members from a care office was saying that they felt they really needed more support. They have a really small number of folks who are available to provide services, and the campus size is quite large, so up to almost 30,000 students on each of these campuses. Next slide, please. Another big issue that we found, and this is not a new finding, I think it comes up in all of the campus climate surveys that are done, is that awareness about the availability of services for survivors as well as for respondents was quite low among our campus communities. And folks indicated that it was even lower when it came to awareness about services that were available in the outside community. So it was recommended across all sectors of the individuals, participants that we interviewed, that it would be really helpful to somehow come up with ways to better increase awareness about what is available, both in terms of response and service. Next slide. So two of the last findings were that a lot of the students that we interviewed indicated that although they knew about services available on campus, oftentimes they felt more confident about seeking services that were outside of the campus, even though they also knew that services were confidential and potentially even accessible online or through telehealth, whereby you didn't actually have to physically go to an office. A lot of them felt more comfortable going somewhere else. And this was specifically the case for gender non-binary students who felt like perhaps they wouldn't feel comfortable going to seek services from some of the on-campus providers. And a lot of things that came up, particularly over the past several months of 2020, was that COVID-19 has had a really direct and significant impact on the ability for both students to access services as well as our providers on campus to provide services. So folks were saying it would be really essential at this point for us to be able to increase collaboration. So my last slide is about some of the recommendations that we came up with from synergizing the findings that we had from our participants from the campuses as well as the community. It was consistently recommended that we create some kind of roadmap that gives us an integrated ability to see what services are available both on and off campus, so that we can better understand how we can work together and how we can do the really critical work that's needed to establish buy-in from both our community, our administration across the University of California, so they feel confident to work with community partners and vice versa. Again, really critical for us to be able to raise awareness. I think a lot of the awareness raising is coming up with different ways to provide consistent levels of information so that it's not just that you can look at this website, but one new advocacy program is asking faculty to include information about services in their syllabi. This is something that students are exposed to repeatedly. It was suggested again by multiple individuals from different sectors that we identify areas of strength and expertise that are both unique to our campus as well as unique to our community collaborators, so that we can come up with a better way to really complement each other and improve our ability to provide more comprehensive service. Lastly, and I think we'll be able to hear specific examples about this from our panelists, it was recommended that we come up with a really strong systematic way to establish sustainable agreements between our campuses and our community collaborators. So it's really well established what is expected from one another, so that we don't have these inconsistent relationships which were referenced by some of our participants, but have more well-known, transparent understandings of how we can effectively work together to create services that are helpful to bolster our student, staff, faculty well-being across the system. So we will provide the link to our complete report in the chat. It's available to download from the UC Speaks Up website, and happy to answer any questions that anyone has. We're very interested in continuing to partner with others from across the UC system and beyond. And with that, I will hand back to Sarah, and I think we're going to move on to our panel discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We sure are. And just a reminder, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that we reserve those for the Q&A. We'll also be sending out the slides that will have contact information for each of our presenters today if you want to follow up offline. So we are now going to start off our panel presentation. We are joined by 3 teams from Antelope Valley, Merced, and Humboldt. And we invited, before the Q&A, each of our teams to do a presentation together, answering the prompt, simply, how do you partner to advance sexual violence prevention on your campus? So first, we're going to be hearing from the Antelope Valley folks to hear how they do that. Then next up will be Merced, and then we will hear from Humboldt last but not least, and I will let folks kind of introduce themselves and their partnerships. And after our 3 short presentations answering our prompt, we will move into our panel discussion. So Angelina and Jill, I'm going to hand it over to you both.
Oh, good morning, everyone. I am Angelina Alvarez from Valley Oasis. I have my college partner with me, Dr. Jill Zimmerman from Antelope Valley College. And first, I'd like to start off by saying thank you so much for everyone coming together. I think this information getting out to the campuses and to the rape crisis centers is amazing. To give you a little bit of background on our partnership between Valley Oasis and Antelope Valley College. Antelope Valley College has been around in the Antelope Valley area since 1929, so they are long established in the community. And Valley Oasis has been around since the 80s. Our partnership originally began when we reached out to Antelope Valley College to assist the campus, both students and staff, with intervention measures for domestic violence and sexual assault. Our partnership was very well. Our communication was great. However, when the grant came out for the education portion for California Department of Public Health, we both jumped on the opportunity to partner and collaborate in writing that grant so that we could bring education to the campus on prevention work. Next slide, please.
So can we go back one slide back?
One slide, yeah.
Sorry.
There you go.
As part of the connection with that grant, that put Angelina, who was hired by Valley Oasis to come into the student life office and work with students who are having any kind of concerns around rape, sexual assault, bystander. And so she's been like a part of our staff, which is wonderful. And so she now connects into classrooms. She's done some all faculty education sessions at the beginning of the semester so people know who she is. And then we do programming through our health services, our BIT team, and my office, which is the Office of Student Life and Services. And so she is, if I say this, she is one of us, and comes to my division meetings and do all of those kinds of things. So she's very integrated, so that if someone knows of someone who's having an issue, it's not this structure that's so difficult. It is just, I'll call Angelina, she's here. Our campus police will call her. Our Title V coordinator will call her, and certainly me and my staff do. In writing policies, Angelina helps review the policies that we have that goes with all of these topics. And she is just that whole collaboration. She doesn't really, either than her salary is being paid by a different organization, she really is just one of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we love that.
That's been one of the best parts of our collaboration, is that when we talk about collaborating, we collaborate through everything from the grant writing process to establishing an MOU, to working with different campus partners. So I collaborate with instructors and I go in and say, hey, I see on your syllabus, you've got this topic coming up. How about I come in and present on the topic, and we emphasize on prevention education for sexual assault or sexual violence, however the instructor wants to frame the topic. Instructors love it. They enjoy taking a break from presenting. We have a lot of fun with the students. I play games with them. I use Kahoot a lot of the time with the students, so there's active participation in their learning process. When I'm in the classroom or even doing campus presentations, I utilize a lot of the Avid features. So there's one game that I love from Avid, and it's called Coffee Around the World. And you take something like a policy and you break it up into sections, and then you break the students up into sections. And each student is required to learn about that section. And then one person from that section stays with their portion and the rest of the students rotate. So it becomes a peer education in that process. And so I like to use a lot of that when I'm out presenting, whether in the classroom or on open topics on the campus. Another one of my favorite parts of collaboration on the campus is working with the different departments. Different departments on campus have various fundings. Student equity on our campus happens to have, I think, one of the largest fundings, and equity covers just about anything. And so I work with the student equity department on a lot of my presentations for sexual violence prevention on campus, and they're able to provide the swag that I can't provide. So we work together on purchasing some swag items. They work on providing food and any marketing that we need to do. So really connecting with your campus programs and departments is really important to help get that message out there. And it also helps build that relationship so that when something does come up, they know you, you have that personal relationship, and they're willing to come to you. In that collaboration also comes the marketing portion. I don't have the ability, I'm not an employee, to go and work directly with the marketing department. But when you collaborate with these different departments, such as student life and services and student equity and the veterans department, you work on the marketing that they're going to put out, whether it's on social media, if it's on print, if it's on the radio. Our campus has a big digital sign out front that we can put marketing on. So it really helps get our message across in various different ways. It can go out through emails, like I said, social media, and other forms like that I don't have the ability or the financial ability to do, but that collaboration and that partnership allows for that opportunity. And then as Dr. Z said, then, I'm able to work on policy with the campus. And the way I've started working on policy is that I work with the campus clubs to see if they're willing to add some sexual violence prevention education in order to be a good standing club member. I work with instructors to see if they're willing to put it on their syllabi that there's a zero tolerance for sexual violence or harassment in their classroom, and some statement about sexual violence prevention. And then I also work with the campus on reviewing their campus policies and procedures that have to do with sexual violence prevention and education. So there's a big facet to, once you start working and collaborating with different departments, it really opens doors for you. One of the best things about our collaboration, like Dr. Zimmerman said, is I'm on campus. So there's a face to the name. I'm not just some person that comes in and is only there for certain meetings. I'm there every single day, all day. I make myself available. I have access to the campus email. I'm in Dr. Z's suite, which is amazing because that is student life and student services. So I'm also able to work hands-on with the student workers as well as the ASO department. So having the co-location on campus, I would say, has been one of the most beneficial aspects of our collaboration. Moving from our collaboration would be our next slide, and that would be campus buy-in.
Let me talk a little bit about that. As the dean, we write a lot of grants and we talk about how we work together. But this particular one is my responsibility to make sure that Angelina is at the spaces where we are clear that we have no tolerance for this. And if something happens to a student, either on or off campus, we have no housing on our campus. And so that we will provide services to our community members. Being a community college, it happens in their families or it affects them. And just the process of working through the court system and all of that support, Angelina takes care of that. I, as a dean, make sure that we are aware that students who are having any issues, either on or off campus, how we can handle that on campus, references to their classes and all of the kind of other support, mental health services that we can provide. But our campus knows Angelina and the Student Life and Services Office as the place where we can go. Our board communications that Angelina talked about, our MOUs and our grants, that all goes through my department. So all of that administrative work I take care of for that work to happen. But the biggest thing is that we've made her a household name. Everyone knows her just like they know any other support service in our staff of who they can pick up the phone and call. And so I really encourage you to think about as you begin to expand your partnerships, how you're not bringing in a stranger who doesn't understand the services, doesn't understand what other kinds of support your campus has. Angelina knows all of that, and our administration knows that she is there to support our faculty, our staff, and our students at any time. So I really strengthen that and support any other school that's trying to do that. We're here to help, particularly at the community college level. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Z. I'd like to add one other thing too. On the campus buy-in for the rape crisis centers, it's really important too that you also show that you have a vested interest in the campus. When students and staff and faculty see you at their events that you're not presenting at, such as football games, plays, or art shows, that really starts to show the campus that you have a vested interest in what's taking place. For us, sometimes it's a little difficult. We're a 2-year community college, very transient community. So it's important that they see you on a regular basis at those different events to show that you're not just there just as the liaison and you only have one job to do, that's it. They really want to see, both students and staff and faculty want to see that you have a vested interest in their campus. So I think that's really important coming from the rape crisis side, that you understand that you have to embed yourself into the campus life, learn the language. It's very different. You have to learn their language and their culture. And so it's really important that you take that opportunity. So thank you all very much for being a part of this, and hopefully we provided you with some information.
Thank you so much to both of you. It was such great information. Next, without any further delay, we will hand it over to our folks in Merced from UC Merced and Valley Crisis Center, who is the local RCC there. So Yesenia and Lena, go ahead and take it away.
Perfect, thank you. So again, my name is Yesenia Curiel, and I am the Campus Advocacy Resource and Education Care Director. And then we have Lena, who is our Care Campus Advocate, but she comes from Valley Crisis Center. Can you go to the next slide, please? Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off, and then I will go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Lena. So we are one of the youngest campuses. We are the youngest campus within the UC system. UC Merced opened in 2005. In 2005 to 2008, a lot of the prevention education regarding preventing sexual assault, dating, domestic violence, and stalking was done by our health promotion coordinator. And then the UC Merced Police Department actually was our chief of police at that time decided to focus on actually having a coordinator that would be able to do this work. The intent of writing this OVW grant was always with the intent of doing it in a collaboration with the local community agency. So Valley Crisis Center was from the beginning part of the prevention work, in the sense that the original vision was for Valley Crisis Center to do all of the crisis intervention services in order to make sure that there was a level of discrepancy between who is doing the advocacy and then who is doing the prevention, because they wanted to make sure that the campus was aware that Valley Crisis Center could do all of those services that Lena will talk about shortly. So we started this collaboration in spring of 2010 was when the first care director, or at that time was a violence prevention coordinator, was hired. We received 2 OVW grants. And then after that, we were able to establish an office within the police department. And then we moved out of the police department into the chancellor's organization. And we're currently now, as of 2019, we have moved into the office of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I'm going to have Alina go next in order for her to introduce herself, and then as well as talk a little bit about her role on the campus. Lena?
Yeah. Thank you, Yesenia. So again, my name is Lena, pronouns she, her, hers. I am the CARE Campus Advocate with Valley Crisis Center. So in this next bullet, it's UC Merced developed a contract with Valley Crisis Center to render crisis intervention services. We are a dual organization. We do provide services for domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, human trafficking within the community of Merced. Services that are included are legal services, crisis counseling services, as well as emergency response, emergency shelter, and transitional housing. And then here on campus, academic support and advocacy. And then we also have our 24-hour crisis line that we provide through the Crisis Center.
I did want to mention that because of what Jennifer Wagman had mentioned was that out of the UC Task Force Prevention on Responding to Sexual Violence and Sexual Assault in 2015, all of the 10 campuses had to have a standalone office that dedicated to the prevention of sexual assault, dating, domestic violence, and stalking. So we went from violence prevention program to campus advocacy, resource, and education. And so out of that is where we also developed mandatory trainings, and we developed additional requirements that all campuses had to render similar services, and then as well as do collaboration with other campus partners. So if you can go to the next slide, and Lena's gonna move us into a little bit about that mandatory trainings. Thank you.
Yeah. So all the, like I mentioned, all the services are for students, staff, and faculty. So CARE, Title IX, CARE Campus Advocate, which is myself with the Valley Crisis Center, collaborate on mentor education programs with students, staff, and faculty. And then I also attend ongoing prevention programs. So with this collaboration partnership we have, I am part of all prevention education trainings, events, and workshops, because we do understand that topics around sexual violence may be triggering to folks, and I am available and on scene to provide advocacy services while the rest of the CARE team can focus on continuing the presentation. And so I do believe that this model that we do have on UC Merced is a great model. We do collaborate with Title IX and other campus partners. The CARE office hosts the VIPs, which is our violence intervention trainings for all incoming and transfer students, and we have reached 100% of our message as far as the prevention education training. We also moved from in-person programs to Zoom due to COVID and policies and procedures that are now with the UC, everywhere. The platforms and engagement, we engage students on our social media accounts, from TikTok to a new podcast that was created by the CARE Prevention Education Coordinator, which is Val here in the CARE office. And platforms are developed by Val and with the assistance of her 10 student assistants. And I'll let Yesenia kind of go over what that platform looks like.
So just to let you know, so one of the things is that we really appreciate the collaboration with Lena in order for her to be able to be on available for us when we do any types of programs, especially right now during Zoom. We can go ahead and have her connect with somebody offline in order to make sure that if there's any follow-up that's needed, she can go ahead and address that. And then our student assistants and our community or our prevention education coordinator can really focus on addressing the program in order for us to be able to, again, change attitudes, behaviors that can lead towards sexual assault, dating, domestic violence, and stalking. So I do also want to comment that our campus is also fairly small compared to a lot of the other 9 campuses. So we have a student body population of about 10,000. And then we have staff that are about 1,000 staff and a little over 300 faculty members. So this is something that our collaboration works for our campus. Can you go to the next slide, please? The one thing that we wanted to mention is the community collaboration that occurs during Awareness Month. So we do collaborate with Valley Crisis Center to do, for example, film screenings on our campus as well as off campus. We do a lot of our students, we actually work with a lot of student organizations, and they do different fundraising events for Valley Crisis Center, especially for their shelter. And one of the other things that we do is that the UC Merced campus does a lot of funding to community partners in order for them to get additional trainings. For example, every March, except for 2019, we would send not only our campus police officers, but our local sheriffs and district attorneys, our campus advocate, Lena, would go to about a week-long training in regards to how to handle sexual assault cases in the community. So we are supporting a lot of the efforts that happen in the community, because we know that a lot of these crimes don't just happen on our campus, but they happen in our community. And so we share a lot of conversations, a lot of trainings that happen on campus as well as off campus for education. VCC, or Valley Crisis Center, also serves as a partner on our care advisory board. So this is in order for us to be able to educate departments, faculty, and different campus liaisons. And so this is something that we do various initiatives within our board, and we're able to have representation, not only from Lena, but we have representation from different departments within Valley Crisis Center. And then we do have open communication, which is, I think, something that leads to us having a successful partnership of over 10 years, is that I have weekly meetings with Lena to look at trends that are happening. And that allows us to be able to kind of reevaluate our prevention strategies when we're seeing that there's trends. If there's something that's happening in the library to something that's happening with custodial staff, so then we're able to really make sure that we are doing this work in a very collaborative fashion. And I also meet monthly with Valley Crisis Center leadership in order to make sure that we are uniting in community efforts as well. And that is it for us. And we, again, have been doing this since 2010. And so if you have any questions or would like to talk to us about our collaboration or our contract, because we have a contract that's almost $70,000 with the community agency. And it's something that every year I'm also mindful as a campus of how can we empower our local community agency. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lena and Yesenia. It's so great to hear from a UC and a community college campus. Now we're going to be hearing from our state school, from our team up in Humboldt County, North Coast Rape Crisis Team, and Humboldt State University. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Paula and Mary Sue.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I know this is Paula Arrowsmith-Jones, and I am with the North Coast Rape Crisis Team that serves Humboldt County and also Del Norte County. I'm here with my colleague, Mary Sue Savage, who will introduce herself in a couple of moments. Our intention is that I'll give a little bit of background on how we built the structure that we have and the partnerships that we have. And then Mary Sue will share some really exciting prevention efforts that we've been able to accomplish. So if we could move to the next slide. So I want to say that partnerships to me is about a lot of things. I think one of the contributions that Rape Crisis has brought to the efforts at Humboldt is that I've often said that team is the most important word in our name. And I think we brought that emphasis to our partners at Humboldt. I think building teams is about identifying shared goals, first looking for intersections of interest and areas where one would have some overlap, respecting differences, different views and perspectives, and that means listening and being willing to hear other people's thoughts and opinions and perspectives from different disciplines, identifying and building common ground. And I think through all of that, it's about trust building. So you can see that as far back in the records that I could locate, 1984, we were a founding member of the Sexual Assault Prevention Committee at HSU. I believe it actually precedes that. And at that time, it really was a group of people who were already really dedicated around issues of violence, both in terms of improving response and intervention, but also in terms of prevention. And as years rolled on, some things happened that allowed us to really expand into what now is our CCRT, that is one of the activities through the OVW grant that we received. But that group really started building out of student activism in response to a sexual assault on campus that became publicly known, and student activists took a huge role in bringing attention to the needs on campus, and that activated some key faculty who then became engaged in the Sexual Assault Prevention Committee. And out of that, one of the first things we did was develop a collaboratively taught class, a 1-unit seminar called Act to End Sexualized Violence, and then a 3-unit class with that same name, Part 2. And we have co-instructed that for the last, I believe it's 13 or 14 years. That positioned us well, and because Rape Crisis was always at the table, we collaboratively wrote the grant with HSU. They did most of the writing, but we were an integral part of that. And established this expanded CCRT that brought not just those already motivated people, but people for whom maybe thinking about sexualized violence, intimate partner violence, stalking, that those things were kind of on the periphery for them. Maybe they didn't see where their role was. And so under that CCRT, we established 4 subcommittees. And I want to mention them because it's a way of bringing different and diverse partners. One of the keys is that on each of these committees, there are student voices, and Rape Crisis is at all of those committee meetings. But they are separated into policy, response to violent crime, staff and faculty training, and prevention, which is what we're focused on today. But I want to say that there's a prevention element in each of those categories. And of course, intervention and prevention are always intertwined. If you're doing intervention, you're doing prevention. If you're doing prevention, hopefully you're providing intervention. So I think the other thing I want to mention here is that we've gained a lot of institutional support that didn't used to exist over all of these years of collaboration, both as a result of getting that grant, but also in order to be able to write that grant. Also, one of the important things that happened is that when the CSU system determined that each campus should have an advocate in place on campus, because of the depth of our partnerships, HSU decided to contract with North Coast Rape Crisis Team. We became the campus advocate team, and they provided an on-campus office for us. And so we do a lot of prevention, both through the OVW grant, but also through the work that's coordinated through Title IX with our campus advocate team. Next slide, please. And I just want to mention, and then Mary Sue will go into the details about prevention. I've bolded some of the things that are really specifically prevention, but I want to say that there's prevention held in all of these elements. One of the great things that's happened is out of that Act 1 class, a student came up with the seed of an idea, a themed learning program called Students for Violence Prevention, which then Mary Sue and some key faculty built into a really amazing group of students who work on campus, who live together, who study together, and who address issues of violence. I think the biggest thing that we've done collaboratively that we're very proud of is our Check It program. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Sue, who can share a lot of information with you about that.
Yes, thank you, Paula. So as Paula mentioned, the Department of Justice grant that we received really allowed us to expand our prevention efforts. So when this happened as a committee, we reviewed the anti-violence work we had been engaging in so far, and we looked at, what was working, what wasn't working. And although we saw that we made a lot of progress in terms of survivor support on campus, when it came to prevention education, we really had yet to engage that critical mass, the mainstream student population, and really feeling connected to this issue and seeing the role that they have to play within violence prevention. So just to give a quick example, before I was hired on as a staff member to create a program, I was an HSU student from 2008 to 2012, and I was very passionate about social justice and violence prevention work. And I would go to all the events, you know, Take Back the Night, and I would look around and I would see the same people at every event. And while it was an amazing community to be a part of, it wasn't reaching the people we actually really needed to reach. And it wasn't creating that culture change that we were striving for, that we were envisioning. And so to address those gaps in violence prevention, we researched best practices across campuses. Again, what was working? And Paula and I attended a Green Dot conference in 2013, in the summer of 2013. And while at that conference, we learned so much and about the power of bystander intervention. We also recognized that we really wanted to create our own program that was very tailored to HSU culture, and most importantly, that it was very student-centered, student-led, and really grounded within social justice. So this led us to developing Check It. If you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so this led us to developing and launching Check It in 2014, which highlights the importance of bystander intervention and just creating new consent-centered norms with college students leading the way at the forefront. And it's really grounded, again, within social justice, within intersectional frameworks, really centralizing the voices and experiences of marginalized communities. And next slide. And so Paula and I, along with my incredible, amazing students, worked to really create an accessible language around bystander intervention, which I'll just very briefly go over. So Check It as a movement is about creating a more consent-centered culture where students are empowered to take action when they witness acts of sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. And that can feel like really abstract when we say to students, yeah, just go out there and create consent culture. So one way we can actually do that is by checking it. So to check it means to check in, to take action, to do something when we witness a potential moment of harm, or what we call a check it moment. And a check it moment is witnessing an absence of consent, you know, crossing of boundaries, a high risk situation, or any act of, again, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. And through creating this language, it's really been helpful in calling students to action. Students are able to better identify check it moments and have the tools to talk about these issues in an accessible way. Next slide. So since the launch of Check It, we've seen that it actually really is possible to engage a critical mass of students in violence prevention. A 2018 campus-wide survey showed that 90.3% of respondents were familiar with our program. So again, that was 4 years after Check It was launched. And the data that we've collected so far really demonstrates the huge campus-wide reach of Check It and the positive impact that it's had on our campus environment and community. And I really want to point out that what makes Check It very special, and something that Paula and I were really passionate about, is that it centralizes student voices, ideas, and creativity. We really strive to highlight, you know, the issues that are important to our multiple communities. We analyze pop culture, you know, what's trending, what's in, what will reach and speak to other young people, college students. And this really shapes our outreach strategies and the resources that we develop. So for example, we offer consent-themed party merch for folks that are throwing on-campus events, on-campus parties, as well as off-campus. We create really interactive activities for our workshops, like featured in one of the photos, our Cards for Humanity game, which is is a consent spin off Cards Against Humanity. And we also, again, really work to centralize art within the movement, really thinking about what's going to reach folks and engage students. And just to really share that, again, North Coast Rape Crisis Team has been such a powerful partner throughout, since its inception, since its creation. They serve, in addition to Check It, they also serve on the planning committee of the Consent Project, which is a huge event that we do on campus. They attend our anniversary party and celebration every year and do a tabling activity. They offer training to my peer educators, my staff. We also partner to present a training for all incoming students together. And the one thing I really want to point out that most significantly, North Coast State Crisis Team / Campus Advocate Team, they are such an incredible resource for us in terms of seeking guidance, when we need feedback on a resource we're creating, or if we're having trouble with a sticky situation or something challenging that's coming up that we want to, talk through. They really are there. And again, Check It wouldn't have been possible without the partnership with Paula and North Coast State Crisis Team. And so if you're interested, I know that was really quick. I'm trying to speed through. I know we're running out of time, but if you're interested in contacting us, please do. If you're interested in Check It, you can contact me. My information is up there, or North Coast State Crisis Team. Paula's information is up there. Also, I encourage you all to check out our Instagrams. Again, that's where we're really active right now. So if you want some ideas on how to reach students, we also have GIFs. If you look up on Instagram, Humboldt State, you'll see all our Consent Center GIFs that you also can use on posts or anything. They're available for anyone who has Instagram. So yeah, thank you all so much for listening, and we're happy to be here.
And I just want to say, Mary Sue's an amazing partner, and we first met when she was that freshman activist student in 2008, and when she came back as professional staff after she had graduated, it's part of what made it possible for us to build such an amazing program. And what we've witnessed, both Mary Sue and I, is that if you can create a kind of container for this work to be done, you will discover a lot of amazing people with a lot of creative ideas that can come into doing the work. And it's been so different since I've been engaged in this for so long. When I think back to my early years here, I came here in 1990, that it was that those same people that would always be present. And now to see it as a really campus-wide movement with so many additional layers of institutional support that we didn't have before. So it's everything across the board, from students, staff, faculty, administrators, and community partners, including ourselves, that have made it possible. So thank you all.
Thank you so much for all of our incredible presenters. There's so much great information. We do want to make sure that we have time to get to some audience Q&A. I have been collecting the chat questions, so thank you for that. Feel free to keep them coming. I see Jennifer has been very on top of answering the questions about the UC Speaks Up report, so that's great. If anyone wants to respond to a chat question in the chat, if it's just something quick and simple, please feel free to do that. But before we open it up, we had one question that we wanted to throw to y'all, and maybe we'll just have folks just go through this really briefly. But we wanted to know, what is a noticeable difference since forming these partnerships? So what is true now on your campus that wasn't true before? What have you noticed?
One of the big things for me is the conversation becomes much more natural. It's not something like this outside person that has to be called in and forced. It's just a natural part of the work that we do. And it's easy, and the conversations are hard, but the relationship is easy. And I like that it normalizes that that's what we do to support our students.
One thing I've really seen is that everything we do really is through a lens of survivor-centeredness, and that was not true years and years ago. And that we have a shared dedication and a shared language, so that when we are from different disciplines or different perspectives, we can find that common ground because we're listening for that shared language and introducing each other to new ideas.
I can share for us that, this is all we know in regards to our campus. So it's something that Valley Crisis Center has been integrated since 2010 into our campus. And so it's something of a collaboration that we continue to appreciate of having this relationship with the local community. And it also gives, I think, specifically, I think staff and faculty are the ones that I can say appreciate it, because they not only can meet with Lena on campus, but they have that opportunity to connect within the community. And so I think that is something that prevention and intervention is something that happens, again, not only doesn't happen in silos. So I think it continues to be seen on our campus. And this is a program, and this is a collaboration that works here at UC Merced. All the other campuses have intervention and prevention services that they provide within their campus. But for us, because we are one of their newer campuses and we're smaller, this has just been a model that has worked for us and will continue to work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Lena or Mary Sue or Angelina, is there anything that you want to add? Something that is different now that wasn't true before since your partnership?
Yes, actually, I would, Sarah. This is Angelina. I truly believe that before, even though we were on campus and helping, I think there was a language barrier in between the Rape Crisis Center and the college. And now that we have partnered and we have the MOU and the grant, excuse me, that language barrier, I think, has disappeared. We both have taken the opportunity, the college campus and the Rape Crisis Center have taken the opportunity to learn each other's languages. And so now when we speak, it's like we're speaking the same language, and our communication has definitely improved just with our immediate partnership as well as our overall campus partnership. So I think that has been one of the big things, because we are in constant communication, that we don't have that language barrier anymore.
Thanks, Angelina.
And again, for me, I was very lucky. I came into HSU as a student, and Paula was so present, North Coast Rape Crisis Team, already on our campus, and immediately was a mentor to me as an undergrad. And so to be able to continue that as a staff member and to, you know, partner with Check-In and other activities has just continued to enhance that presence. And we've been able to really expand and scale up. So it's great to see the differences, but just acknowledging, you know, from the very beginning, North Coast Rape Crisis Team has been that key partner to HSU.
Great, thank you.
And I would just like to echo what Yesenia said. This is what we've known since the beginning. Me coming out to the university was a little different, learning the education culture here, but just being out doing trainings, being present, it helped individuals within the campus community, you know, feel comfortable coming, receiving services. So that, I mean, that has been a plus for us. We have had really high success rates with faculty and staff, as well as students. But it is something that, you know, the UC Merced campus individuals are comfortable with. And so, like Yesenia mentioned, this is what we will continue to do. And I did want to kind of make sure that it was clear. So all prevention education goes through the CARE office, which is Yesenia, Val, and their team of our student assistants, which consists of 10 individuals. And then myself I am on campus in the CARE office. I do have my own office here on campus, and I provide, it's more like 95% all intervention services, and then the other 5% is to kind of do like these presentations and to be present in case there is an incident at one of the events.
Thanks, Lena. Now I would love to take a couple minutes to open it up to audience questions. So please feel free to come off mute, or feel free to drop your question in the chat and I can read it aloud. You can ask questions generally of the whole panel, and whichever one of our panelists wants to pick that up can do so. You can direct questions towards the campus RCC teams or to one person in particular. So we will give it a moment and open it up to you all, our audience. I always like to give it a couple moments pause if folks are typing, because sometimes that happens to me when I'm typing something and people move on too quickly. Let's see, we have a question here. Just looks like a general question. Have students reported a higher rate of accessing campus resources like Title IX if they are able to have the support and initial connection to the Rape Crisis Center?
We
Sarah?
at Humboldt have definitely seen that, and we hear from many survivors that we work with, both who qualified for Title IX, but also those that maybe are trauma survivors before they arrive at school, that they appreciate the options that they have for supportive services that includes the Campus Advocate Team / North Coast Rape Crisis Team, and that we're available to them on campus, or they have the choice of coming into town and receiving services away from campus. So they have named that collaboration is something that they see and understand exists, and that it opens doors for them.
Sarah, this is Angelina. I agree with Paula. I know Dr. Zimmerman and I have worked with students, and they too have come forward and say that they do enjoy the ability to have the resources on campus, being able to speak with me confidentially before making any decisions that relate to Title IX, including any type of formal complaint to the campus, so that they understand what all of their options are, both on and off campus. So yes, I personally think it has done a lot for the students, and our numbers show that.
Thanks, Angelina. And Yesenia and Lena, it would be interesting to hear one of your perspectives, since your model is so unique, and Lena at the Rape Crisis Center is providing so much of the advocacy and intervention services, while the care office at UC Merced is doing a lot of prevention. So I wonder if you've heard any of that feedback.
I think for us, when our prevention programs go up, our reporting goes up, and that's within Title IX, or just the number of services that go up for Lena. So I think that's something that it goes similar to probably a lot of community agencies. The more prevention happens, the more likely people are to report. I think one thing that's unique also is that our Title IX officer has Lena's number on speed dial. Anytime that someone comes to their office before they come to connection with Lena, right away Lena, she's folded into that Title IX process immediately. So I think that collaboration is really something that we appreciate, because Lena is able to be available with the survivor from the beginning, right? So I don't know, Lena, if you have anything else to say about that.
Yeah, and it does make it easier coming in onto campus. I do have my own line, so I have my own cell phone that is provided to all UC Merced. This cell phone is provided through the Valley Crisis Center, and so that confidential piece is, important to a lot of folks, to everybody that comes to receive services. And so any information that's gathered with the Valley Crisis Center stays with Valley Crisis Center. I don't provide any of that information to either Title IX or even Yesenia, for that matter. The only information that is gathered is demographics of trends and things that we've seen on campus for Yesenia to do her reporting and things like that. So we have seen a higher.
Thank you so much, everyone. Let's see, I think we have time for this one last question. And Jennifer, I think it might be directed toward Jennifer and Claire about some of the UC Speaks data. And the question is that someone had mentioned earlier, I believe when we were talking about the UC Speaks report, that non-binary and gender non-conforming and perhaps even LGBTQ+ as a whole, students preferred off-campus resources and services. So they're wondering, is there any clear findings on the reason for this, or is the assumption simply because the campus isn't as affirming for them?
Claire, I'll invite you to join in if you're still there, but I'll respond to that quickly. One thing I'll say is encourage everyone, we can provide the link to look at UC Berkeley's My Voice survey results those were super informative with regard to some of these questions specifically. I think for the most part, we found that a lot of this was based on assumption. We were not in this particular study looking specifically at people's personal survivor experiences. So we didn't have a whole lot of one-on-one information about this, but I think a lot of it was just kind of fear of feeling uncomfortable and or stigmatized. Claire can add to that. One quick thing I wanted to mention about the last question, though, is that this seems super simple to all of us who are in this world, but one of the things that we found was overwhelmingly confusing for many students was lack of understanding of confidentiality versus non-confidentiality. So just going back to the question too of whether students were more likely to report if they went to the care offices on our campuses, that was definitely the case because the students felt so much more supported and liked to have the, really appreciated having the knowledge provided to them about what the Title IX process was. And I just put that out there because it's one of the reasons we're really working with students to try to do the syllabus statements as just one example to try to clarify some of these confusions. So I will stop there, and if anyone else has anything to add, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I was gonna let you know that, oh, I think I'm getting some background noise. I was going to let our panelists know too that if you have any insights into this question about non-binary and gender non-conforming and LGBTQ plus inclusivity on campus, please feel free to drop that in the chat because I want to make sure that everybody who is able to answer answers. I am noticing the time. I think that that's all we have time for our audience questions. We, audience, would like to pose a question to you as we're wrapping up. We would like to know, and please answer in the chat, what action step are you going to take as a result of this web conference? So if you have any ideas of things that you are going to do or strategies that you're going to try to implement moving forward, I think that we would really all love to hear about them and have folks share amongst each other what it is that they would like to do moving forward. So please take a minute on your way out and let us know. What action step are you going to take as a result of this web conference? And additionally, we do have a link to a survey, and you can see here, this is everyone's contact information for our panel. So you can feel free to screenshot this. We'll also be sending out these slides so you can have all that information. And I know that some folks already shared their emails earlier. So multiple ways to get the information to connect with folks if you have additional questions or would like to follow up with our researchers or any of our RCC campus teams. And here we are at the survey. Please take the survey. I think my colleague Claudia is going to drop that in the chat. Oh, it looks like David is on top of it. So please click that link. It's a really short survey. It should take you 2 or 3 minutes, but the feedback is always so helpful for us moving forward as we continue to talk about these topics and talk about essential partnerships to advance prevention. It's always so helpful for us to see in the survey what folks are taking away and what folks would like to hear more of. So if you have 2 minutes, please do so.
And this is David from CalCASA, and I just want to, we really want to, hope that this was helpful. And it was so great to hear from all of our panelists sharing about the experiences of what collaboration looks like. And I'm excited hearing about those collaborative successes that each of you had. And we want to be able to help support in California, college campuses working with rape crisis centers to be able to make a difference towards ending sexual violence.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much for coming. It was great to see so many folks joining, and Thank you again. Huge thank you to our panelists and presenters, and we will see you next time.